going to share a humorous story of how I ended up with this guitar. This is not really a guitar lesson. This is more just kind of a real quick talk about this guitar that became my main guitar from the years 1990 to 95, around that time. I used it pretty regularly up until about 2001. This guitar was a graduation present that I bought myself when I graduated from high school, and it was not the guitar that I had picked out. So, here's the story. When my brother graduated from high school, 2 years before me, my grandmother had given my brother a $1,000 check. So I was super excited about my graduation. $1,000 was a lot of money back in 1988 when my brother graduated. I graduated in 1990, and between 1988 and 1990, my father had passed away. So, very humorous story. So my father had passed away, and this was his mother, was the grandmother that gave my brother the $1,000 check. So I'm assuming that I'm going to get at least $1,000, maybe even more, because it's 2 years later and our father had passed away. So I was thinking I might even get a little bit more. So I had gone to Bill's Music, which was a really nice, still around, a really nice music store in our area, and I had found the perfect Rickenbacker guitar that I wanted. I picked it out. It was very similar to one that George Harrison had played. It wasn't a 12-string, it was a 6-string, but I had a guitar hero of mine, a local guitar hero of mine that also played a Rickenbacker, and I really, really wanted that Rickenbacker. And from my memory, I believe it was $1,400 for that Rickenbacker. So I had picked it out. That's going to be my graduation present. My grandmother's check and whatever other money I could scrounge together, I was going to get that Rickenbacker. So the week before my graduation, I went to the store and I made sure it was still there. I think I even talked to a sales guy and said, I'm coming back in a week and I'm gonna get this guitar. So my graduation comes, and we're having the party afterwards, and people are leaving their presents, and my grandmother walked up to me and gave me the envelope, and I was super excited. I opened up the check, and the check was for $200. And I looked at my grandmother and I said, "Oh, thank you so much, Grandma. Thank you. I really appreciate this." But in my heart, I could just see the Rickenbacker go up in flames. I would never have $1,400 to get that Rickenbacker. So I ended up total, with the money I had in my bank account, I ended up with about $650. And I went to Bill's and looked through their used guitars, and I found this one. It's a Yamaha SA800, and I didn't realize at the time, but it is pretty much the same look as my dad's guitar that I had accidentally destroyed a year earlier. And I didn't think of that at the time, but it was $600. So I had the right amount of money for it. I put $600 down cash and came home with this guitar. Got it home, opened up the case, and a friend went, "Well, what's that? There's a crack." And there was a crack running through the head right here, right through this tuning peg. I was devastated. I went back to the store. They said, "We're so sorry, we didn't realize that there was a crack there." They fixed the crack. Everything was fine with it. Came home. It became my number one guitar. I'm so glad I didn't get the Rickenbacker. A few years later, I became really good friends with the guy, the guitar hero of mine that played the Rickenbacker, and I didn't like the way it felt at all. It was all in my head that I really wanted that Rickenbacker. But this guitar, I could do jazz gigs with it, I could do my rock and roll gigs with it. It became my baby. Now, years go by. I assume that the reason I got the $200 instead of the $1,000 was because my brother was a straight A student, knew what they were going to do in college, and I was a musician that wasn't even sure what I was going to be doing. And I just, that was one reason why maybe Grandma gave me $200 instead of $1,000, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And she probably did not want me wasting it on music stuff. I was wrong. The reason, years later, just recently in the last 5 years, I was telling somebody the story about me only getting $200 and, little wah-wah story. And that I ended up getting this guitar instead of a Rickenbacker, and it was great because I ended up not wanting the Rickenbacker. My mother said, "Do you know the real reason why you only got $200? And the real reason was my grandmother heard that my brother had spent the $1,000 on a computer. Now, Sean had gotten the computer for college to help with college, with classes. My grandmother heard in her brain, Sean wasted the money on a game, on a computer game, not realizing how important computers had become. 88, 89, this is when computers were starting to become necessary for going to college. So I got $200 because my grandmother thought Sean had wasted the money on a computer. And so was not going to let me waste $1,000 on some silly thing. So that's why I ended up with this guitar, which turned out to be one of my babies. Have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye.